Everybody, welcome. I'm not going to spend that much time on this topic tonight because it's just something that I've had in my mind for a long time. And I really needed to get this idea out there, even if I know those of you unfamiliar, I'm doing this with a very limited audience. As a matter of fact, I haven't really even announced it. So let me do that really quick. Let me let some of these feeds synchronize here briefly. Looks like the main one's going. Yeah, okay. That's not the one I want to share, though. Hang on. All right. I'm here, folks. Welcome back. Sorry, I know you probably are, those of you who are really into it probably haven't even seen the last couple ones that I did, so that might be not the worst thing because this one is not going to be very long. All right, hang on, put this up on Twitter. All right. And what a pain this thing is to get going. Hang on. All right. All right. All right. Sorry about the wait there. Here we go. Hey, it's late. People got Saturday night things going on too. So, hey, anybody who does happen to join or watch it in the aftermath, great. It's kind of an interesting correlation, though, in data relative to my networks. Because it's almost like I'm in a loop. All right. All right. So, well, it looks like the chat's going to probably be a little bit low tonight. So, All right. It should be interesting to see what happens here. So, I'm going to do a quick verification externally. Hang on, folks. Thank you for your patience, those watching in the future here. I guess I'll put on the thing to not watch until like about 3 minutes in. Just doing this really quick to make sure that there's verification external from here that this thing's live and going. All right, cool. Waiting to see myself. Here. Oh, look. I'm going to go into a weird space-time loop. Wow, look at that. Oh. Dun, dun, dun. We're playing around with space-time. Getting super weird. All right. Who knows what kind of events we created and what kind of rifts we created within the space-time continuum. You never know. All right. So hang on. See, all my awkwardness with my hat isn't as obvious when there's no lights on. So it, but Hey guys, on one thing you can count on though, this time, I promise you, as much as relaxed as I am when I'm giving away the secrets to the universe, tonight I'm wearing some pretty decent pants, So I gave you that much respect. I'm not just sitting here in my pajamas or some sweatpants or, even worse, but I never do anything quite that controversial. Don't worry. I have that much class. All right. But welcome, welcome. No, I'm not wearing wool pants. Oh, my hat? I thought you said the pants for a second. Yeah, I do think it's a good idea to wear wool or wool blend hats, beanie types, and then here's a good reason why. And then here's an observation that I have, guys. You can depends on how you feel about certain things or whatever, but brings me a lot of relief, especially when I'm sleeping. And it's a nice way to, like, you can put this over. I'm gonna get super vato. Who you trying to get crazy with this, eh? Don't you know I'm loco? So, you know, you can do the who you trying to get crazy with this, say, don't you know I'm loco type thing, for your comfort level too. It's not just a way to be badass and intimidating. It feels pretty good actually. And so again, it's just something that I've just learned to have as a quick way to. I think part of the reason why it works is the same reason why wool blankets are so effective. It's because regardless of what the temperature is, it recirculates your orgone, your naturally occurring orgone. And then, what I would argue is the more positive you can keep your thoughts while you're in the wool materials or wool blends, the more that radiation will recirculate back into your body. And so I'd say as often as you can meditate, practice those types of things with the wool materials and the blankets or anything that's within the realm of an orgone blanket. You don't have to have an illness or anything like that. It could just be something you just do for your personal wellness. And I would say that would be just like as good as drinking water, quite frankly. I mean, not as good, but I mean, you could consider it something as important to your health. If you really start to understand like what orgone is, a lot of people will make fun of this because they expect it all to be some high-tech solution where, things of that nature. But no, it's a lot of things you get from the most wellness out of are things that just take advantage of your naturally occurring energy and recirculate it. And I've just found that the more meditative you can be, the calmer you can keep yourself, regardless of your challenges at that moment. That's not just a good way to be in general, but just it seems to help with the recirculating of the energy because it's POR spectrum radiation returning to you very quickly, because as it's leaving the layers of the fabric, it has this tendency to kind of like keep going back into the body, going back into the body, back into the body before it then eventually dissipates out. So I guess you get this sort of recirculating effect with the bions relative to human energy. All I know is that regardless of what that scientific explanation is, it just feels good, in general, I find. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. So if you've got things like that going on, you may want to definitely consider this as a method. Wool and the wool blankets and things like that. Look, it's just going to help in general. So I recommend it, whether you go get those like military surplus style blankets, you can go to like nearly any of those stores and get those types, 100% wool. But if that's just too wool for you, too hardcore or whatever, you can't handle the roughness of it. Not everybody likes that. The Pendleton blankets are a good alternative. They're about 80 some percent wool, and they do a really good job of recirculating energy. But I haven't even gotten to the core topic, guys, so let me get to it. I want to talk about these pyramids here, and I'm going to have to shave off like 10 minutes of this presentation when I archive it, I think. So sorry, guys. Those watching this in the future, it's taking me a little bit time to get going here. Um, it's just partly because I've had a lot of network issues, and I'm trying to make sure that the material that I do is actually writing out on an IP that, you know, is functioning. I had to make some changes to my network. All right. So what is this thing I've been talking about with the Altai Pyramid? Number one, I want to get right into the topic, guys, because that's really the focus here. Is I'm not going to talk about like 1,000 things, because this is really what I want to talk about. It's that there's a pyramid that I learned about that's in Altai that I'll put up here on the screen in Russia. Here's an image of it just on its own. So if you go into Google Earth, you can map the coordinates. Hang on, it's doing weird things to me now. Okay, here we go. So this is what it looks like, you know, obviously from the satellite image. You can see that it makes this nice, perfect, like, you know, flux capacitor shape, very consistent with pyramidal structures, three-sided, 1, 2, three-sided pyramids. And this one, you know, you could argue looks from a distance like it's naturally occurring, but if you study this and you look up the details on it, there's actually kind of a brick wall. They've nicknamed it sort of like a China wall. I think it's just because it's sort of like a you know, a more primitive form of what the Great Wall of China is up on top of this structure. So I remember seeing some photos of it. I can't find them right now. I'm not sure if I took enough screenshots of any, or if I took screenshots of anything but the maps that I did in Google Earth. But there was material that I found, but it's extremely difficult to locate it about this structure. But what's known about it is that it does seem to have higher than average energy emissions relative to what some call orgone, things that can be measured with devices like I've shown you guys, like Carillion photography, the GDV, the gas discharge system, something that the Russians have a stronger understanding of. Carillion photography originates over there, so that makes sense. You know, a little bit like the way a lot of magnetic tape things originated in Germany. You know, so they seem to have mastered a lot of those things decades before everybody else and had a little bit of an edge when it came to like magnetic tape recording, for example. Very relevant. That's a whole nother topic, guys. But I would argue that's just as relevant to the edge that they had then. And then when you understand what Carillion photography really is doing and what gas discharge photography, the other methods that they learned about measuring energetics, learning more about subtle energies, things that exist beyond what you know about electrical fields and magnetic fields. Subtle energies, aether, a lot of people call it prana, chi, orgone, lots of different forms of ways people discuss it relative to what it's flowing from or who it's flowing from. And you'll find it across many different cultures. And so that's all I'm discussing here today is when I say it has strong energy, that is the form of energy that I'm discussing. And yes, many times also you'll find that these areas also have anomalies within their magnetic fields and their electrical fields. Okay. So this is the Altai Pyramid. I can get you, if you like, guys, ladies and gentlemen. If you're interested, those are the coordinates. And I can type them out here, 51, let's see, 51.303, 303, that's funny, 942, and 84.265088. Okay. Sorry, guys, I don't have. There you are. Hope that works for you. Those are coordinates. And obviously you're in a different, you know, you're not dealing with a Western whatever country here, so that is your accurate. You're just going to be 51. There's no positive whatever neg or anything like that, like you'd find over here. So Yes, that's accurate. If you punch those numbers in like that, it'll take you to that location. Those more in tune with, you know, how GPS works and Latin law and all that thing. Okay, so that's just for you to do your own research if you're curious. If you want to do this on your own, you can do it on your own. All right. So if you go into Google Earth, which I really shouldn't be doing right now because that's going to seriously mess with my connection. It really slows everything down when I'm on Google Earth on this machine, so I got to do that differently sometimes. All right. So here's what I discovered is like when you go on Google Earth and you basically go to this point in the center of the flux capacitor here of this pyramidal structure, you'll learn that this alignment is basically 15 degrees. That's where it points. And so the thing I do with all of these pyramidal structures is when I'm researching them is I'll always just go to the center. I'll just find out what is the alignment. Is there a known alignment that people discuss already? What do I see personally compared to what others see? Sometimes I don't even see something that's the accurate number in that particular case, but I'll still find something when I go and run the angle relative to what I see on Google Earth from the sky. That's what's really strange about these things sometimes. They're not always like 100% perfect, yet they'll still align with things in strange ways that you don't really get. Like, how did that even happen? That's where I think there's a little bit of some type of, there's the things that everybody could go in and tangibly, you know, do on their own. That's really not bizarre or weird. And this would be one of them where you can kind of do this research on your own and kind of verify what I'm talking about. And I'm going to whiteboard the idea here better instead of just show you this map again like I have historically. What I'm suggesting to you folks is that, and I'm going to put this up very quickly here soon, is that when you align this, what I do with these pyramids is basically I go, okay, wherever it's pointing, I'm just going to run however many nautical miles clear to the other side of the earth at that number of degrees, and I'll keep it at that number of degrees the entire way. I'm not taking anything else into account. No declination, blah, blah, blah. None of the things that you usually typically would follow to go on a map, taking all of the earth rotation into account, everything like that. No, I don't think anything about those things. I purely dial in, okay, where is it pointing? Then I draw a line in Google Earth from the center of this location out about 10,800 nautical miles, takes you to the other side of the earth, and then the line tool won't run any longer. So, you know, basically, I'll put this up on the whiteboard pretty quickly here, guys. But in fact, that's the best time to do it is right now. So let me hang on really quick. All right. All right. Sorry, you didn't need to see my face that close, did you? All right. So what I'm telling you guys is that, make sure you can actually see this, okay. We get that. That'll help, okay. Okay, we can agree that it's kind of shaped like that, the Altai Pyramid. So what you do is you run this line. Basically, when you use your line tool within Google Earth, you go to the center here. You can use this tool called line tool or heading tool, and it'll actually, you know, aim it for you. Well, you have to do the aiming usually with your mouse, but it'll show you like based on what I was showing you here, guys, like this. you can use that line tool to measure from the center out to learn what the angles are. So what does it point north? You know, what are the angles going down on this flux capacitor pyramid shaped looking thing, right? Okay. So with this one, I measured this angle. When it points out on this, it dials in at 15 degrees. Then it winds up at so effectively what you're seeing here is that Lake Mead is, you know, obviously just water, right? It's this structure like this. You know, the water flows out like that. But the point is, it's very similar to what you see here, right? The Altai Pyramid is, you know, up. Lake Mead is down. But you could almost take Altai Pyramid like a cookie cutter and put it into Lake Mead. You understand what I'm saying? If you were to fold the earth, take the earth and like fold it, right? Like say it was just like this was like a pop-up book or something like that. And this was the crease. The fold would go like this, right? Like this would imprint into Lake Mead. Altai would go boom, just like that. What makes this more remarkable, guys, ladies and gentlemen, this distance is, let me see, I have the exact number. About 5,400 miles. All right. So about 5,400 miles. Now, why is that remarkable? Well, because within the Earth, if you have a beacon right here, so say this is at this pole, and then right here, from here to here, again, every time I measure it inside Google Earth, I get about, 10,800 nautical miles. And so what's trippy is the number of miles that you get between Altai. So let's just say, for example, this is Altai, Russia, and say this is Lake Mead. All right, so the reason why I think this is kind of remarkable, guys, ladies and gentlemen here, is that say that at the northern tip here, you're at Altai. Let's not talk about whatever's where it originates. Just Altai, Russia here goes all the way to Lake Mead, Nevada at 5,400 nautical miles instead of, which is halfway. So literally at the 25% mark, is a perfect, nearly like an imprint. So whatever is in Russia as a mountain or a pyramid is a lake in Nevada. This was the discovery that I had, folks. Sorry. I come back on camera and I'm looking a little bit goofy there, so I apologize. But I don't know how that resonates with you folks. I hope I explained that properly, because I've been really trying to get that idea out for a long time. And like, so let me put this back up on the screen in case it's still kind of not resonating with you. If you can kind of understand what I just said to you, as far as where Altai would go about 25% around the circumference of the Earth, which would be about 5,400 miles, nautical miles, excuse me. You have to designate nautical miles when you make this measurement within Google Earth if you're going to verify all these things. So when you go from the center of Altai Pyramid and you just go, start just aiming it about 5,400 degrees, or just dial in Lake Mead, Nevada once you anchor your dot in the center of the Altai Pyramid, and you'll find it dials in pretty close. I mean, you have to really get it down precisely, but you'll find if you don't get to exactly the same point as me, you'll get pretty close to it. And that'll dial you in straight to the center of Lake Mead, Nevada. So you begin with an inverse of this same type of structure. One is a lake, the other is a pyramid, but they both have that same sort of flux capacitor shape. One is in Russia, one is in America. One's a pyramid, one's a lake, but the shape is identical practically. They just have different functions. This really made me ponder about how do things resonate into frequency when they say that there's a mirror of everything, is there's an opposite of everything. You know what I mean? How is this really working? And so this is kind of the idea that I wanted to throw out there for you folks, because to me, this is really, there's something that needs to be understood energetically about why this occurs. I think it needs to be studied. I think it's actually a little bit of a wake-up call for all of us to sort of like just figure out whatever, like if people have some problems across the world, just figure it out, guys. There's something like kind of miraculous that's going on right now, and we're being given evidence of it. This leads me quite frequently to the research again of Uvarov and some of the people that are close to the Bosnian pyramid, like Dr. Osmanagic. They basically have been studying some of the lesser known pyramidal structures, going around and doing the measurements of the subtle energies, things that really nobody else I've found that really is doing. It really is this group of people and the others that have figured out similarly, like I have, that they're really onto something as far as understanding like what these locations can do. So, you oftentimes hear people say like, hey, that place has a lot of energy, or I have a lot of energy, and as if this is, like always a positive thing, when in all actuality, it can be a very dark and destructive thing relative to locations, especially. I did an article on the Demon House, for example, here in America, that the Ghost Adventures crew, they're mostly for entertainment, guys. I get it. Maybe people take them seriously depending on their, level of awareness and knowledge, I guess. But I think that they actually do get into some degree of investigative things that are legitimate, for that pass muster with me, even if there's other things that I kind of roll my eyes at. It's mostly just because of my time in wireless. I kind of know how certain things can get rigged, even to fool investigators. So I don't say that as a claim on their intellect or their research. I say it just because there's certain things that I could maybe debunk that the average person couldn't. That's all. And that can maybe frustrate some people who have come to accept that certain data points are always rigidly like what they are, especially when it comes to voice anomalies. I don't think that they've ever been offended by, I doubt they've even seen my things, but I just don't put a lot of credence into those types of things that involve frequency sweeps and then somebody hearing their voice from a specter or a ghost, because that is one of the most hackable things in the universe. But I do take seriously when they buy a house and they do like extremely low frequency measurements. They do Geiger counter measurements. I mean, yeah, now you're getting my attention. When you tell me people had possessions inside that building and things like that, well, wow, now you're getting my attention, you see. then I start going, well, what happened there? Is that just a bunch of tales? Is that lore? Is that just something somebody said to make the place more interesting as a museum later, you know? Well, no, the guy tore down the house because it scared the hell out of him. He had such a bad experience in there. It actually cost him his vision partially. So no, it was not a good experience for the guy. He literally walked out of there with physical anomalies. I would argue that if these group of guys at this thing took the Russian researchers' material more seriously, they would take greater precautions before putting themselves in that kind of risk. Because a lot of people don't take it seriously, and I think maybe to some degree, even people that are more for entertainment's sake sometimes don't take psi energy seriously. And you should. You should take all this type of psi energy, positive, negative, or however you interpret it, as dark or deadly or whatever your interpretation is. It is something that's serious. It is something that, you know, I've learned that I have to take a greater role in managing for myself. I mean, I do. I have to understand better how I bend plasma relative to others. Do I do it to a greater degree? Do I do it to a lesser degree? I don't really. Look, there's things that would prove that I do it to a larger degree than average. And when I understood that better, it really made me feel more like I have to be more responsible and keep, you know, as much as in check as I can. And so, again, that's been a challenge for me because I kind of have been used to not thinking that way, being more self-minded. And so, you know, it takes some time to figure out a little bit if you're not used to it. It's literally understanding that once I began understanding things like how I could affect a plasma field, like near the Oregon coast, for example, or near certain geographic locations on the Washington-Oregon border where there's a lot of the water frequency, things like that. Once I started having those experiencing and rainbows were popping up everywhere and they seemed to be synchronizing with other events, and I was having rainbows kind of follow me in certain cases. And one time I actually drove through one, which I really can't remember something quite like that happening before, where I'm like, am I about to drive into this rainbow? And I've done material on what I think a rainbow is at a scientific level. You know, like what it represents as far as like the Schumann resonance as a harmonic of the earth. And then because it's the frequency is moving through the visible, the visible frequency, those that are like within the color spectrum that we can interpret as colors, you're just seeing what we would normally interpret as invisible. It would be invisible to the mind's eye because we use that plasma field as our fuel to create the projection amongst each other. So a rainbow is a little bit like we're seeing the God source radiating, boom, 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 boom. You know, we're getting to see the God source, and it's represented in that multicolored rainbow. It's kind of cool when you think about it. I never really was that impressed with them, even though I would find them a lot of times around me, and I would capture them on camera and go like, "Wow, that was amazing!" You know, I just seem to really be able to get a lot of rainbows on camera. And it was weird, you know. All right, I need to give my back a rest there. Hang on. Oh, okay, better position for me to sit in here right now. All right. But I kept finding these types of alignments, guys. And, you know, if this doesn't make sense and I can explain it better, please let me know, because I want to explain it better to you guys. I promise you I won't, you know, chastise you for asking a question or something like that or whatever. I want people to get what I'm talking about here, that effectively that, you know, when you look at what I did, just whiteboarded, that think of it like, say that from the North Pole to the South Pole, you could figure it's about 10,800 roughly. I don't know what the exact number is, guys, but I think we could look it up, I guess, about 10,800 nautical miles. And then if you cut that in half, you're about 5,400 miles. And so I observed that when you go from Altai Pyramid to Lake Mead, Nevada, you get this really cool pattern here. And to me, that says that there may be these patterns elsewhere, that maybe this is a sign that these things are communicating. Maybe this is in fact a sign that there's an energetic grid, an ancient energetic grid that is part of our geography, that is part of the infrastructure of the earth. It's in mountains, it's in pyramidal structures, it's in lakes, it's in oceans. There's mirrors. Why would that be a thing? Because how is this energy, how are we rotating? How are we actually creating the earth rotational field? I would argue that what you're looking at there is something like a stargate. It's a little bit like a hinge pin to the way the toroid kind of spins and everything like that. You've got those points where it just, so when I say stargate, it doesn't necessarily mean, guys, that you can do time travel or whatever in those locations in the classic sense. That's not what I'm saying. I think what it is it's a place, it's a hinge pin where all kinds of things can happen, even via remote sensing. I know that's a little bit lofty to say, right? But I do think that that's true, which is to say thought forms, even focusing and concentrating on these locations, I think is part of that. It can help maybe make things manifest. What I would hope to do with this is nothing nefarious or anything like that. I would hope that this bridges a gap scientifically of those who might be, inclined to view my material maybe because they have to know that a lot of my understanding and awareness of what's gone on in Russia has nothing to do with governance, has nothing to do with, this side versus that side or any of this crap. I just simply found these people through the Basis Project. It was part of one of the better parts of my experiences over there. I bitch about it a lot, but I would say that a good thing about Basis Project was Uvarov was number 56 on the Basis Project, and I'm number 57. And so maybe just because our numbers aligned right next to each other, it made me more compelled to, I don't know, review the material. And then I just got way deeper into studying, a lot of the things that were going on there overall, including some of his written material and going through those books. And I was just really fascinated at how comprehensive his accounting of ancient history and earth alignments are. I'm going to show you also probably some parts of his website. But also, folks, I also wanted to point out here that it doesn't just go there to Nevada, Lake Mead, Nevada. It also has an alignment, if you're familiar with my material, to Joseph, Oregon, and Wallowa Lake. If I were to get into Wallowa Lake tonight, folks, that could be an entire another presentation. I mean, that would take a really long time. So I'm not going to do that one quite yet. But I think what we're really getting access to, as far as like, I think that we're being given signs externally that we need to just sort of wake up a little bit and wise up. Wise up. That's probably a better term. There's a song by Amy Mann, very, very apt at the moment, I think, to the situation even. It's not going to stop until you wise up. It's not going to stop until you wise up. That song has like dropped me hints and clues more times than I can remember. It's bizarre how it just seems to reappear over and over again. Sometimes it appeared as a main pinnacle point in the 1990 film Magnolia by P.T. Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, a brilliant director. I think probably one of the best living directors, if you ask me. I think nearly everything he's done is brilliant and has like enormous heart. If you really study it at a deeper level, especially, there's way more going on beyond just the drama of the story. I mean, they're heavily encoded but beautifully so, and films that really express a lot about the way people work and humanity. I think that I felt like the film Magnolia was built and designed or directed and created by a group of people that have so much heart. I felt every part of their characters, like they all resonated with me so strongly, and I cared about them, and it just made me feel very close to the people that made it. It's one of those reasons why, guys, I have a hard time sometimes accepting some things about Hollywood that I really don't believe a lot of it. Some of it, yeah, I know it's true because I had to come to terms with it, the dark realities myself. I didn't like it. But there's other things that I know are just being made up to steer people off the right path. And so that's why I make constant, appeals to people that there is something beautiful on the other side of all this, and that we can't let the psi energy aspect of what's going on right now beat us, any of us. What is negative psi energy? This is what I learned from Uvarov's material, which, in fact, you know what? I'm going to see if I can find it here. I think I'm on the right website for it, but I may not be. If not, I can find it pretty easy. All right. Hang on. I can get it because I'm sure there it is. I don't want to go deep into this topic per se, but it is worth noting. Because I don't want to talk about I don't like talking about these things just this simple, like, good, bad, evil versus whatever. It's so much deeper than that when you get it at the level that Uvarov does and as expressed in this article. And the problem I find with a lot of the material that we have available to us here in the West is that it is not very comprehensive. It seems to put you into circles and loops of data where you're kind of in a lot of the same people saying the same things and reinforcing the same thing, where it's almost like the same person wrote it. They just cut and pasted and put it on the next website relative to these topics. A lot of that just comes from DOE labs. I'm not going to go dark today, guys, but yeah, Department of Energy labs that have so much of the paperclip influence that uses psi energy in a way that's weaponized and manipulative, and have had it quietly running in the background pretty much for decades. And a lot of us are just becoming aware of it now. If you look up the term MK Ultra on my YouTube channel, you'll see I have a much different approach to it. I discuss it almost entirely at a frequency level. I don't even talk about chemicals to hardly any degree. To me, it's all about behavior and frequency, what they knew about psi energies relative to creating larger groups of populations that are programmed into negative psi energy environments. And so if you were to go into Uvarov's material, this article here, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I mean, this gets super, super heavy into how did it all work, going back to Mayan and Aztec priests, Tibetan Egyptian cults. I can narrate this at some point in time. At another time, guys. Sorry, something's going on with my throat here. Very weird. This happened to me before, guys, when I get into certain topics. This goes deep, deep, deep into it about the shape of the structures, that when you go to certain places, that it's not always the right thing to do. To summarize really quickly, they show you how they used to have these temples, like the Mayans and Aztecs used to paint theirs red, and that was to basically prime using color coding. The color red does get the crowd worked up into a darker frenzy. It makes them more violent. See, the wavelength of red light is the largest, so it has the maximum effect. Red enclosed space accumulates psi energy, Having lost their knowledge of the rules on how to build pyramids, the Maya and Aztec priests from the onset planned and built their pyramids as psi accumulators. For a battery, you need a charger. How to create such a charger? A generator of psi energy and make the pyramid work. So again, psi accumulators require psi energy. Psi energy, how is that generated? Negativity. It manifests as negative behaviors. It manifests literally as trying to prime more negativity and more negative behaviors within the environment. Anytime negativity and negative energy is used, or fear or threats or stress are used as primers for behavior, you are tapping directly into negative psi energy mechanics. When you use things to inspire people, you're using the positive orgone radiation spectrum, and you'll find karmically that that returns to you exponentially if you understand what you're doing relative to energy. So I would say the more you learn to take negative psi energy environments, negative psi energy events that are designed to drag you into negativity at that moment, regardless of what you're feeling physically, I challenge you to take that moment to train yourself to maneuver your mind out of that environment, to really train your brain to say, wait, all of this that's going on from me externally is derived from inside me. Once you understand how much you're controlling it, how much you actually can actually bend what is going on to you, regardless of whether or not this is electromagnetic or behavioral or whatever. People, I hear all kinds of things. People tell me they get, literal psi attacks. They get psychotronic attacks. This is something we have to take more seriously in America. People are mocked. We now, today, I noticed, had several officials complaining of the effects of things involving directed energy. Directed energy is a form of negative psi energy. It's just done industrial strength. Just helping you understand, folks. But I would argue psi energy is a little bit more esoteric and complicated than that. Direct energy weapons, the mechanics of it are pretty simple. You aim, it points at somebody, it gets an effect, burns them, affects their behavior, etc. Psi energy, that's part of it, and that would be a form of it, yeah. But I would argue it's a much broader use of changing the orgone field to encourage and to prime everyone within it and near it into greater negativity, so it goes on into a continual loop. And if it's a psi accumulator, the point of this loop of negativity, encouraging more death, more sacrifice, more anger, rage, whatever, is to fuel the accumulator. Then the accumulator just becomes almost like its own demon on earth. It becomes the building begins to take on a life of its own. Hence why we have haunted buildings, guys. I mean, look, that's why I kind of give those Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters type shows a little bit of credit. I get that they're doing something legit. I wish, though, that more of them would transition over into what I'm discussing here and take that aspect of it seriously, because to me that feels like it's the hidden part. I'd feel more confident in those groups if they studied exactly what I'm talking about, because it shouldn't be, if you're a really serious studied researcher, these things really shouldn't be outside your realm of study or ability to communicate. And I would argue that it's probably your greater responsibility, and part of why you're put here or given certain rewards and privileges is because you are here to communicate these types of things in a way that's responsible. And I think that a lot of people get close to doing it, then they decide, nah, I don't think I want to go there. And I don't know why. But basically it says at first, animals are sacrificed, guys. I don't want to get too dark into this, but then they said, yes, human beings, they killed thousands and thousands, and they used the blood. And so this gets pretty dark. It talks about how literally the crowd would get worked up. The psi accumulator, being the pyramids, begin to become an accumulator. They're literally the color spectrum of all of it, the way everybody's responding to it. People are, through their rage, giving their energy to the building, to the architecture, to the geographic location. Now that geographic location is binded to what? This is where you're getting into these alignments, like I just explained to you, why that 33-degree thing is such a thing. Why is it such a thing? You know, I mean, I probably said something about, no, I didn't talk about 33 tonight as much, did I? Yeah, I just said Altai Pyramid to Russia. Okay. Just making sure, guys, I didn't give you guys a commitment to explain this whole 33-degree thing, because that would be challenging. Yeah. So again, they also mentioned that in Egypt at the Abu Ghraib temple of the sun god Ra, that this was also a method that was used, something very similar, and that there's people that will go there, expecting just to have a simple historical event, and they may have an awareness that these things happen to a degree, but they're not really taking into serious consideration how stepping into that environment might change them and their physicality. Again, there's a certain part of the placebo effect of everything. You don't want to tell a person that going into these places necessarily, like, you will get sick if you go into Abu Ghraib. Well, right there, you might be priming that person into the illness. So again, am I going to say that? I don't know. But I want people to be smart about the energy environments that they enter into, and they take them serious. I was in some very challenging ones quite frequently, guys. I've been into some pretty serious, I don't know, they're challenging to express things, where people almost have situations that I've been in where people kind of like showed signs of like demon possession. It's the only way to describe it. I don't think that I was crazy in what I witnessed. I mean, I saw some people doing some very strange things in front of me, and I couldn't find an explanation for why they were behaving the way they were. They just like went 180 degrees and started just like in this psychobabble, sometimes doing it right in front of me. I was like, whoa, I've seen these things happen and heard them. And so like, I didn't know what to do with it, because those were times where I was kind of lacking in resources. And these are people that were, in some cases supposed to pay me, and they hadn't paid me yet, but I was in a situation that was dangerous. Like, I'm like, I got to get out of here. I don't care if this person, I mean, I wanted them to pay me because I was, I needed the money, but whoa, I had to go. And, what makes that a reality? I don't know. I did these some situations of people I didn't know very well. In other cases, I've been in these environments, and I did know the people quite well, and their personalities did change radically. And so I was looking for answers, and I do believe that this plays heavily into it. I think that there's people that have even been close to me, just to be real with you, that I think it's because of where they changed their location to is partly why their behavior changed so radically. The location that I was researching relative to them. Look, guys, I've seen some of the satellite footage to know that what it was prior to it being a neighborhood was a hilltop winery, and like a private one that people went to. And in the area that neighborhood was in, knowing that that's the function that it served like a couple decades ago, doesn't give me too much confidence that there wasn't, shady things going on out there. The wineries are sometimes the front. I need a little bit of a rest, guys. Hang on. And so I get a little bit, I don't know, how do I say it? Oh, wait, I got to plug this back in. Hang on, folks, having some power issues. I've looked for answers to kind of understand like why certain people change so radically. And I find this constant connection to this type of, hilltop, energetic location that seems to be places where they harvest, negative energy, but don't necessarily reveal it. they'll have a front as like a winery or a front as some other business. And I mean, I'm sorry, guys, but it's hard for me not to tell you that I observed changes in people that were kind of connected to it. And I guess if, you point at a few people and say that they changed, they might look back at you and say, no, it's you who did or didn't or whatever. And you might go, touche. What can I say to that? So again, guys, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to ever tell you 100% one way if I'm right or wrong, but I've seen people change, and this helped me understand it better, the mechanics of negative psi energy, the way certain places are actually designed completely to encourage this. So this is another one of the reasons why he's explaining to you things like, why they would use like this was actually bowls that were used for the sacrifice, and it would accumulate the negative psi energy. Sorry, guys, I'm not trying to be whatever. And they said the accumulated energy was directed upward through a steel vertical waveguide in order to break through the energy membrane separating the first and second astral energy shells of the earth. So I would argue, guys, this is where you're getting into the biofield. You're getting into, well, we know we have a skeleton. We know we have our face out here, but then what's extending from us, that's our biofield, and that's our programmable influence. And so what these accumulators are doing is they're literally gathering it from the crowd. It's accumulating all of the psi energy from the crowd and then funneling it through one central, like, whoever the chief or whatever is, the shaman, or whoever the leader of the pyramidal or the god or whatever is, leads back to them, and then it re-radiates out using this structure that's designed as the pyramid at the top of the obelisk. And this is a reconstruction of Abu Ghraib. So again, being used specifically for this exact purpose, accumulating psi energies. And you can even see here, Yuvarov says they're advised not to stay at the temple for more than 10 to 15 minutes and by no means meditate there. If you stay longer, the more so when meditating, your energy system will inevitably become contaminated with negative vibrations in the form of energy imprints of the sacrifices left in the energy field of this place. And so you may find the same thing awaits you if you visit the Maya and Aztec pyramids. So I think people just take it for granted, that aside from, whatever normal things that you should take into account or be take into precaution or whatever, they're not always taking this larger issue into consideration. All right. So anyways, that's something I wanted to show you really quick. I've quoted it before. Hang on. Because there's been so much talk, guys, I didn't want to ignore this topic at all, really. But I don't always have a lot to say when it comes to things that involve UFOs. Sorry, I lost my window there. All right, there you are. Hey, everybody. Nice to see you again. All right. So I think it's worth noting, the power of pyramidal structures and what they know over there in Russia and what kind of research they're doing and how that might be affecting things for the better, for positive. Because if you know how to do it right, you can change a lot of the negativity that has occurred via some of these pyramidal structures that were designed more to be psi accumulators for a negative form of energy. And so being an energy balancer, I think, is something that they're kind of they're kind of taking on as a larger responsibility. I don't know. I could be wrong on this one, guys, but I think some people there just get it. They understand that this needs to happen. And I wish that more people would be focused on doing positive things relative to Oregon instead of negative things, because it really is a karma cycle that if you're not aware of, if you don't know what you're doing, getting into energetics will accelerate your karma cycle exponentially for the better and for the worst. Once you understand what it's doing, yeah, you can make your life exponentially better. You can also tank it pretty fast too. You can do both. And I would argue, yeah, like the more selfish you are, the more greedy you are, the more whatever, the more cruel you are, then yeah, that's kind of how it manifests back in return. Now, it doesn't mean for you to be a pushover or a schmuck. It's not meaning for you to be a person that doesn't take care of yourself. Not at all. Quite the contrary. You know, when you're tapped into this, I think you should definitely make an effort to be happy, to be abundant, to just know that things are going to work out, feel confident, you know, make forward steps to create that and make it happen and make it a reality. Yes. But also know in your mind, always focus on it, that you're going to be a success, that you're going to be happy and you're going to manifest it. And the more you learn how to do this and practice this, I promise you, the easier it gets, you know? All right, hang on really quick. Gotta move these windows. All right. I want to make sure I read you guys something that's kind of relevant here, but just to give you a quick background. So what they've been doing over there is building complexes of pyramids that are very precisely built. They'll put quartz crystal in them and that kind of thing. Tomsk is one of the locations that their team was responsible for doing. And this is what I thought was interesting. Now you can accept this as whatever, right? You know, but I tend to believe it because I've had a similar experience. I think that this is a photo sim, guys, so I apologize if I said I wasn't sure what it was before, because it did look a little bit close to what I saw, but it didn't look real either. So yeah, it's just a photo sim, but hang on, I'm going to show you something. As soon as the last octahedron of the energy system of the pyramid complex near Tom City was completed, a UFO appeared and added the new pyramid complex on the map of the intergalactic and interplanetary space communication network. It said that, so I think that what he's suggesting here within his piece was that because they built their pyramids to such precision, they were using the actual principles behind being more of a positive orgone radiator. They were doing it more in harmony with the earth, that it basically created an event where somebody wanted to come down from above and take a look. Now, the way they describe this, it says, our distant creators were well aware that the principle of duality lies at the base of the creation. The main idea of the principle is that any physical object, be it a human being or a crystal, has a physical body as well as an energetic body or matrix, the crystal lattice of the crystal. The energy matrix of the human being is a kind of energy skeleton, which during the growth of the organism allows for tissues to form into organs, the vascular and nervous systems. The entire organism is built on this principle. The same applies to all physical objects created by nature. Nothing arises or appears by chance, but is a physical projection of its energy structure, of a certain matrix. In a global sense, the whole world around us is a projection of the creator matrix. From this follows that when creating any kind of housing construction for the human being, even more so a pyramid or a complex of pyramids, everything must be subordinate and corresponding to the principle of duality, the principles of yin-yang in Eastern tradition, or ba-ka, as the ancient Egypt priests call them. This leads to a very important idea. For a pyramid complex to work properly, it is necessary to build not only physical pyramids, but also a corresponding energetic projection of the complex. The energetic pyramid will be formed by the energy beams generated by the outer corner octahedra via the tops of the pyramids of the second and first rings, meeting at the top of the central pyramid. The width of the base of this energetic pyramid will be 540 meters. On the physical plane, it will look like it is shown on the picture below. It is for this reason that throughout the construction site, Serious geodetic measurements were created out to ensure an exact coordination of the foundation levels as well as the apex of all pyramids of the complex to a position that would connect their tops with energy beams to form an energetic pyramid with precisely specified parameters. Hang on really quick. Now I want to go back. With that in mind, what was the Altai Pyramid? It had specific parameters, I would argue. It was built by the ancients, and I do think that this is supported by their research team. I'm pretty sure that's where I read it. I just can't find that exact article. But it would suggest that the Altai Pyramid was built perhaps by the ancients prior to any of these nations even being a thing, prior to all these wars, everything else that occurred between all of us, before we even thought about lifting a finger or raising arms at one another or having a Cold War. This was created. And so perhaps what this is designed to do at this time in history is just to encourage those of us who figured out that there's something much more miraculous and deeper going on with this ancient energy grid, that perhaps through our research and those of us who figured it out, maybe in developing, establishing partnerships about why these things are occurring, and in fostering partnerships, that would be one way to bridge the gap on a lot of things. I really don't like what's going on with the stance that's between our countries right now. I feel like it's motivated by pushing Russia out and not giving them an ability to be a viable competitor in world markets like they could be and should be. And I think that part of that is predicated a little bit on that. I think they do understand, certain people for bad reasons do understand that this understanding of energetics gives Russia an edge that very few people understand. Now, that doesn't mean they're better or worse than anybody, guys. I'm not sitting here saying that there's anything wrong with America. No, not at all. What I'm suggesting is that America wake up a little bit when it comes to what's occurring here, because this all existed long before any of these governments did. And so just forget about all that. And those of us who are a little bit more scientific and spiritual minded, we need to start, maybe just showing a little bit of leadership to the people that are a little bit more stubborn minded and demonstrating these things in a more open way. I've been trying to over and over again. I hope this helps. I really do. I hope that there's people that see this and go like, wow, all right, now I kind of get it. Why would this occur? Why would these things happen? Well, let's get back to the last article, guys, because remember, the pyramids have very specific alignments. Every single one of these things are built to a specification. So when you see something as precise as the way that this is lined up, where it points to, and it's not for no reason. And they find this over and over again when they're studying these ancient alignments. They'll find them over and over again being offset like true north, magnetic north type alignments or whatever, seeming to suggest that the North Pole is off alignment, or that it was originally, somewhere else. Like there's the theory of Hyperborea that he's discussed oftentimes, that the real North Pole before we all got off our axis and off our alignment was in Greenland. So, again, guys, it's a pretty interesting set of ideologies, but it's hard to argue that a lot of maps have changed. You go back hundreds of years, and some of the maps that existed showed that things that are covered in ice now were, greenery, and that there was plant life and all kinds of things. They weren't these desolate, frozen ice caps. So what might have happened? Is it perhaps true that we don't always have a correct, well, we should know that by now. We get lied to about history constantly. But maybe the reason why they etched out some of these nice people in Russia was because they've been trying to correct history. And it's just such in contradiction to what makes us work. The lies make a lot of the wrong people function, and it props them up, within our economy in America. And I think these are people that it would be good if America did not have them propped up. That's all. It'd be equally good for us as it is for people globally if some of these people weren't being propped up artificially the way they are currently. And they're the ones that are preventing us from basically having any sense of partnership. It's bizarre, guys. It's like Bosnia has a pyramid. There's all kinds of wars and things that broke out over there. It's like anytime there's going to be something miraculous and healing, they want to find some opposing thing to it. So why do you suppose that Russia has like this Altai pyramid? It's kind of off. They're kind of like way off, in the middle of wherever, right? And it's not that, it's not like surrounded by like a what do you want to call it? Like a huge population center or anything else like that. Whereas Lake Mead in Nevada is right next to Las Vegas. So why would you put something that is, like, you see where I'm going with this, guys? Here you have this other location where it's like there's nothing like that going on. There's no casinos. There's no city of sin. There's no, dark culture or sin culture relative to a desert with just that little bit of water. When you're in the Russia side of this, there's water everywhere. There's greenery everywhere. There's mountains and things like that. It would suggest abundance and growth and things like that. When you go to its inverse in Lake Mead, it's strange what's happened to the energy there. And it's not like, this is some like weaponized form of it, like, look what we did to you. No, I mean, this again, guys, these were the climates long before any of these things could even be an idea in our minds, where there was a Cold War. So what I hope it points to is that there really is kind of like something miraculous about this, and it'll point to other things that are very similar in nature, that if we start studying this link and creating similar types of measurements, I think you're going to find more of these, that this isn't just a one-off. You're going to find it over and over again with certain locations. And it'll be a sign that there's a link between these locations relative to the way that there's an inverse of them somewhere else, thousands of miles away, at a very precise angle. So that's kind of at the crux of it all. But getting back to it, this is why I kind of wanted to share this with folks, is I just keep seeing all these things about the UFOs and the pyramids. And again, guys, I've never been a big pyramid, and not a pyramid. I always like pyramids, but I've never been a big ufologist person, and I don't like to get myself, honestly, I don't really like to even get into it for the most part. But I did have some experiences relative to seeing some things before, and again, I didn't have any weird probing experiences. I don't have negative associations with my experiences. It was just kind of miraculous. There was a fireball that was up in the sky. I was driving through the middle of Nevada with my family. I was maybe like 19, pretty close to there, years old. The family had an RV, and they'd take it from Washington State down through Oregon, Idaho, and then Nevada, and then in California, like a loop, and sometimes go back and forth that whole length there, and stay in the RV every step of the way, so that we wouldn't have to get hotels and everything like that. Anyways. So on the way back from one of these, really long trips down, from Washington down to Nevada and back, California and back, we took the middle of Nevada as the route, and it was late at night, and, I was driving. Nearly everybody was asleep, or mostly asleep, except for my mother. She was like just waking up. And as I'm driving, I just look up in the sky, and this fireball, this looking glowing orange thing, just like you're going to see in these photos, not exactly like it because it was pretty far up there, but yeah, pretty close to that. It's just breaking every space barrier that I can think of. It's not a regular aircraft. It's not like it's an airplane that can go like this, then does a total 180, goes in the opposite direction and goes up, down, and then flies off. So this thing was showing off. It wanted us to know that it knew. And that's what was trippy about this, you guys. It was just trucking along, and I'm like going, what is that thing? I'm like, hey, somebody come up here and look at this. And my mother was the only one that came up to look at it, and then it started to get out of my vision, and it started to make a slope up, And then she saw it make the shape of the letter M, and then it stopped. It kind of wiggled, and then it just zinged off. I mean, it's almost like a cartoon the way that this thing it almost seems like it's CGI animated, the way how bizarre it moved around the sky. It had more reality to it, though. That's all I can tell you. It didn't feel like it was a lens flare or something weird like that. No, it was really moving around, and it did seem to be have something glowing around it, and it was orange like this one was. So, anyways, so they mentioned when they got done building some of these pyramids. Oh, hang on. All right. So you can see like this is the actual photos of the real work. They obviously drew in some of those green lines, but you see how they built this huge pyramid in the center, and they have smaller ones that extend out there, and they're doing this with a great deal of precision. But they wanted to show you how that they what they do with these complexes is that they make the pyramids, yes, but then the way that the pyramids draw lines to one another is also taken into account. I'm telling you this so that you take some of my lines more seriously, because I oftentimes find the number 33 in these alignments. So, which is to say that sometimes when you're at the top of this pinpoint and you aim down from here to here, that oftentimes is a 33, a 303, a 330, or a 333-degree line. A lot. I see it a lot. So what did all these groups know about this, the power of those threes? This I thought was really cool the way they did this. See how they kind of like, but they kind of show you, how this all works. They break through the matrix a little bit to show you, using like a photo sim, the way that all these things are designed within the architecture to create the pyramidal structure. Yes, it is steeples within the church, but they have an awareness about what they're doing with the metaphysical, how they're taking everything from inside the church, the belief in Christ, all those crosses. I want you to think about that. Those are energy, those are resonant energy they're vibrating into resonance, the Christ symbol, the Christian cross, all the beliefs, the orgone that's emanating from all the beliefs and the practitioners. They're visualizing the Christian symbol, the Christian cross. They're sending that energy upward. When they sing the songs in the church, when they sing the songs, the hymns, the vibratory frequencies are resonating, all the information about Christ, the Bible, all of it going up into those steeples, into that pyramidal energy structure that, yeah, you're saying like, yeah, I know how it forms that thing there, but you could draw those lines to all kinds of things. Yes and no. Here it's done with intention, and it does have an effect. It does have an effect. It actually will send that energy outbound. It'll help increase it. And so it says here, the morning of the day they started the seventh phase in the construction of the pyramid complex, the creation of a special energetic pyramid. The pyramid near Tomsk City, Russia, according to the project, in the corners of the base of the inner. I'm really not reading very well right now. According to the project, in the corners of the base of the energetic pyramid will be installed special double pyramids, which will be acting as generators of the energy beam. These generators consist of two pyramids joined together at their base to form an octahedron. For their molding in this ground, special pyramid-shaped excavations were dug and prepared and were lined with a special formwork. The approach was dictated by the large own weight of the octahedra and the complexity of the required subsequent manipulations with them. I mean, I want you guys to really look at how precise they were, how much effort went into this. I mean, look at this. Look how huge this is. The octahedrons. I mean, you guys can see like just how amazing this whole thing was, right? And this is where it gets interesting. It says after installing the octahedra in their place, they were aligned with the help of a laser beam so that the energy beam generated by them exactly touches the vertices of the pyramids of the second and first energetic contours on its way to the apex of the central pyramid of the complex. Energy beam. All right. So hang on. So they give you a visual representation of the energy beam and how they're all aligned, right? So again, this is what I do with the Google Earth. I just kind of show you that, yeah, there's energy beams that they do align, and oftentimes they align using 33. It's weird though. I've tried to explain that to people that have energy department credentials, and they mock me. Interesting. After their alignment, the octahedra were fixated so that their angle of inclination does not change over time. The underfill ensures that the octahedra maintain their inclination angle even in the case of attempted unauthorized changes of their environment. No one's taking this seriously, though. That's all right. As soon as the work on the creation of the planned energetic pyramid was completed, an unusual event took place. Upon aligning and securing the last corner octahedron energy beam generator, the workers went to the field kitchen. Sharing impressions of the work done, the workers and engineers sat down at the table. At that moment in the northeast, a bright flash occurred. Turning into the direction of the flash, the workers saw a glowing ball hovering right over the just completed northeastern octahedron about 200 meters from the field kitchen. It was not difficult to estimate the size of the ball, as the parameters of the construction site as well as the size of the octahedron were well known to all. The bright orange UFO was approximately 2 meters in diameter. That's obviously a photo sim, guys. So, but they kind of show you how the thing was moving around to check out its environment. After hovering over the octahedron for about 2 minutes, the UFO made a sharp jump in a split second, having covered a distance of 540 meters, then hovering exactly over the northwestern octahedron. This is exactly what I saw, guys. It was like just like that, but way, way high up in the sky, and that's what I saw in Nevada. It was just like that. I'd never seen anything like that move the way it did, just back, forth, really fast. Could go up, down, left, right at the drop of a dime. Having hovered another 2 minutes over the northwestern octahedron, in front of the astonished audience, the UFO covered another 540 meters along the side of the wet square base of the energetic pyramid in a further split second, now hovering over the southwestern octahedron. And after hovering over the southwestern corner octahedron for about 2 minutes, the UFO made a final march of another 540 meters and hovered over the southeast octahedron located in the forest belt. Stopping there for about 2 minutes, the unidentified flying object vanished, having made it to transition into a parallel dimension. Apparently, the energetic pyramid we have created, the Ka or Yang component of the energy flow, and the physical pyramid complex, the Ba of Yin component of the energy flow, interacting with each other has a powerful influence on the space-time structure of the location of the pyramid complex. In other words, the pyramid complex has begun to radiate an energy signal noticeable on the map of the chronofields, time fields of the galaxy. This energy signal was noticed right away. As a result, immediately an object sent by the Watchers appeared in our dimension to show us respect and esteem on one hand, and on the other hand, to place the appropriate marker, a GPS marker, on the map of the chronofields of the universe for subsequent orientation to this complex when moving from one dimension to another. If this was being from anybody besides Uvarov, I would not even be reading this, guys. Seriously. I mean, I don't take most of the people that talk about these things seriously, but their material I do. Thus, common day, like we are becoming a link in the energy information network, as well as members of the cosmic community playing, albeit not a big but noticeable role, not only within our civilization, but also to more advanced cosmic civilizations who are beginning, at least in some way, to take us into account or orient on us. There's just some interior shots of the pyramids. Let's see the video. It's a combination of like what's built relative to like then they photo sim in what the future plans are. I believe the Tomsk facility is still an ongoing project. That it's just something they're building as the funding comes in, but this is just, pieces of it. The foundation was the center. And so they're kind of showing you on those photo sims what the future plans were. You can see that I think it's called Project 12 or something like that in the Uvarov playlist that I've made. I collected as many of his clips as I could find that are in English or have English subtitles. And I put them all in one playlist because I do think it is some of the better material relative to these types of concepts. How could you discuss pyramidal energy and these types of things without getting into ufology? It's challenging not to. And so if I do delve into that topic, I'm pretty conscientious and cautious about, what I absorb. And I don't know, I'm just finding so many parallels to like the things that Uvarov said on the Basis Project. They showed footage that was like years ago. That was 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. He was on that show. And they showed the footage that was in Russia of these floating pyramids. And they looked a little bit holographic, but they didn't think that that was exactly what they are. It's a little bit of a sign that there's something that's sort of bending physical reality in tandem with being something somewhat metaphysical. And that's kind of consistent with this whole, the fireball thing here, the UFO, the glowing orange ball. So I'm just asking people, I know there's going to be, because like we have a lot of people that their entire, livelihood is negative psi energy. And that's been kind of a foundation behind modern psychological warfare. What I'm asking you folks is that those of you who feel like that's the way to go, I'm asking you to take what I talk about more seriously, because there's a larger connection to what is possible in what we can achieve on Earth to preventing war to begin with. Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to know like all the mechanics of negative psi energy and how to really F things up, then yeah, we could have some real lessons there, right? I mean, we can show you really how to do it, but you already know. So why does anybody need more information on how to F it up worse when I would like to tell you, like, we could just as easily develop a system that's positive orgone radiation. I don't think it's really that complicated. You have to balance out some of what's occurred in our country, especially. And I think a lot of that does come from building these types of structures in a way that do have positive intentions, that do have global alignments, that do understand that there's an interconnectedness between all of these nations, even if they don't want to believe it. You know, did it ever occur to you that maybe some of what went on between the United States and the former Soviet Union, as it was in Altai, Russia, perhaps the link between our two nations at those angles is a part of it? You guys understand that if you go to the Washington Monument, do the math yourself, go right to the Vesica Pisces of the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. with Google Earth and aim at 33 degrees. And guess what it does? It goes to Moscow. Are we linked energetically or not? Of course we are. In multiple places, you see there's an interconnectedness that I've been learning about, because I don't speak the same language as them, but I don't like to see, all I learned about these things, guys, is like I feel like I don't like to see them kind of pushed out of people seeing their material in a more meaningful way, and for the proper people to be credited with it. Because again, guys, I would even argue that a lot of the things that I do is fairly derivative of a lot of his research, and I may have learned it from somebody who got it from this other guy who whatever, right? And so who begat what within the knowledge sets, I don't know. But the one thing I do know is that a lot of times when I'm studying something that we have access to here in the West, it is some type of an offshoot or just a derivative of a lesser form with not as much information of something that this man has put out there. So again, I know I spend a lot of time tooting his horn and everything like that, but I'm not going to stop tonight because this is really good material and it's very relevant. And so I would just like you to take, because I'm going to end this here in a minute or two, just to take this as a reminder that we are connected, that this may be a sign that if we do harm to one, that exponential harm will come to the other, and that maybe if you continue this cycle karmically, that this is kind of what's going to happen. I mean, I'm telling you, as a person that spent a lot of time near Lake Mead, the culture is dying. I mean, you'll find fewer places where there's a stronger example of what's wrong in America right now. Sorry to the people in Vegas or whatever, but there's some dark things going on out there. There's a sense of people just giving up and saying like, F it, just leave it all to the whatever, right? It's just going to be messed up anyways. Who cares? And I don't want you to get down like that. I don't want you to do that. Because I think what's going to wind up happening is the peace device or whatever is that it's going to be this interconnectedness, that when you create imbalances in one nation, it's going to come back at you in this karma cycle that the ancients put here, that I think is starting to come to fruition. And it's not because people are building it. It's because it's all part of something that we're all part of as a collective consciousness. And so I would like you just to take that as an example of whatever goes on here, it's going to whatever affect it in the other direction. And I want you to take a look at what's going on around Lake Mead and compare that to Altai. And I would say they have a healthier culture over there. They're going to be thriving in the ways that have more meaning. And, blocking them out of the certain things really isn't a benefit to us. We really should be encouraging more communication, better communication, and fair competition, so that we can be, partners globally. That's what I would like to see, guys. I'd just like to see us in a better relationship with them so we can do all these energy things. They know a lot and we need them. And we need to be in better partnerships scientifically. We need to look at this a little bit like weather, guys. There's an orgone toxicity event that's occurred globally, and we need to fix it on a global level. And we can't do that until we all have an open discussion about what's gone on and try to fix it together in a multifaceted approach. It is the art of peace. I want to end on that note. Thank you very much for joining and listening and everything. I do appreciate you. Have a good night. Have a good day.